how can we prepare? What are some of the things we can do? Let's talk about immunity too. First of all, let's go 101. Immunity. Where is it manufactured? Where is it created? Where is most of it inhabited?
Yeah, so you're right. It's a fool's game to wait on this vaccine concept. There's a lot of questions out there. Number one, there haven't been any vaccines for the coronavirus family up to this point because it's really hard to make them for them. So, I know in our conversations we want to be very offensive about our defenses, right? Okay,
Yep.
right. We want to take control of this and not live in the fear, the fight or flight. Right. We want to live in that other place. So when you ask, where does the immune system live? It's really every cell of your body.
They say when you face your fear and you overcome it, it becomes the foundation of your new strength. Life is about stepping out of your comfort zone and taking risks all the time. And I find now when I coach people, the biggest thing that stops someone from getting what they want is the lack of courage.
I met Alvin about 1.5 years, 2 years ago at a retreat that I was invited to that he was offering. That retreat was definitely the springboard that pushed me into taking charge of where I was going with my life.
Peak performance is not just for an elite athlete. It's for anybody who wants to get up every day and be passionate about their life.
It doesn't matter how old you are, it doesn't matter where you are in life, you can rewrite your story. You can be exceptional.
Hey everybody, welcome to Journey to Personal Greatness, the podcast. This is the strategy session of the week, of the month, actually. We do 2 of these strategy sessions so you can arm yourself. I don't want this just to be about me speaking at you. I want this to be very interactive, this conversation and you following me. I want this to be useful. So, Journey to Personal Greatness. These are all tips and strategies that actionable. If you choose to take them, put them in action, they're actionable tips and strategies, these sessions, that you can put into place to achieve your personal greatness. And then the other sessions I'm going to remind you is that I have the masterclass where we talk to influencers and leaders in the community and pick their brains so I can give that to you and share that with you. So I'm collaborating with a regular masterclass. Actually, he should be in the masterclass, but I'm going to collaborate with Dr. Flory now going forward, both on this podcast and with my clinic, the Center for Healing. And I'm going to pick into his brain. I'm going to pick at his brain to bring you do a deep dive on nutrition, the chemistry part, because in my book I talk about chemistry, balancing your chemistry, because your hormones and your chemistry drive a lot of your thought processes, and those are those times when you can't seem to get out of your own way, and you cognitively you know what to do, but you seem to wake up out of this haze and you're a funk and you're doing the things you don't want to do. That's usually because you've been hijacked by some kind of a hormonal imbalance. And so that's what Dr. Flory's here. He's going to help support my journey with you. And so I'm going to welcome him today we're going to talk about immunity, a really hot topic right now. We're going to talk about immunity and what you can do. And this is 101, because as he comes back again, we're going to dive into a deeper level on this conversation. But today we'll start with what you can do now, 101. So Dr. Flory, welcome to the show.
Thanks a lot, Alvin. I really appreciate you having me on. We've had so much fun in our off-camera conversations, and we're starting to have a lot of fun on these too. And I know we're helping a lot of people with the information that we're bringing.
You got it, my man. So
yeah,
that's the whole goal. And like I said, Dr. Flory will be a key part of a staple now going forward. Now, immunity. Let's talk about that. How the state that we're in today, we're in at the time of this recording, May 26, 2020, we're into the COVID experience and we're on the quote unquote tail end. However, they're talking about a second wave, potentially. This thing is so mysterious. It's quote unquote unprecedented. The second wave. So those of us, I want our listeners to not be the type who sit back and wait for this holy grail of the um, the viral shot. What's it called again? The
vaccine. Yeah.
vaccine.
Yeah.
There it goes. I'm looking for that V word. So we don't want to sit and wait for the vaccine. The only thing we're doing is waiting for the vaccine. How can we prepare? What are some of the things we can do? Let's talk about immunity too. First of all, let's go 101. Immunity. Where is it manufactured? Where is it created? Where is most of it inhabited?
Yeah, so you're right. It's a fool's game to wait on this vaccine concept. There's a lot of questions out there. Number one, there haven't been any vaccines for the coronavirus family up to this point because it's really hard to make them for them. So, I know in our conversations we want to be very offensive about our defenses, right? Okay,
Yep.
Right. We want to take control of this and not live in the fear, the fight or flight. Right. We want to live in that other place. So when you ask, where does the immune system live? It's really every cell of your body. Right. And then this is when, as the field of, say, neuroimmunology and immunology developed, that's what made it set it apart from a lot of the other specialties in medical sciences and these sorts of things, is that it's really pervasive throughout the whole body. And it's really important. Some of the things that you've mentioned, you mentioned hormones, right? Or earlier, like hormonal control, and the hormonal system is just integral, to immune function. There's it's often spoke about in terms of having, kind of a hormonal crosstalk or support to that immune system. And so it becomes important, right? Because we know that that stress in general, or anything that induces the stress response, it can have the potential, if it goes long term, to imbalance the hormonal system. Well, then that means it's going to imbalance the immune system, right? And so we wanted to do things that strategies that can help to support that regular daily circadian rhythm of hormones, because that's going to support a strong, and what's most important is a balanced immune function throughout all the cells of our body, right? It's a whole body thing. There's very few topics in medicine, functional medicine, cause-based medicine, like I like to do, that are more about holistic strategies, right? The whole person. How are we supporting that whole body so we get a balanced immune function?
Yeah. So there's a lot of talk about the gut being one of the primary sources of this immunity. 70%, I've often heard, 80%, somewhere like that.
Yeah. So the gut's super important, and in some of our previous videos, we just to kind of touch on some things we talked about, but irritation of the gut due to a poor microbiome. Once that microbiome is poor, you can get a chronic inflammatory condition in the gut where it's perforated. It's literally got little tiny holes in it called leaky gut. This creates a type of immunoglobulin excess in the body that feeds into the clotting, or it creates thick blood, literally, right? And so this time of the year, when there's seasonal allergens, and some people have some food allergens that are all coming together to make this blood thicker, or more likely that your blood is going to clot. Well, specifically viruses also trigger this same sort of immunoglobulin, right? So you can get a kind of a trifecta of bad situations that build up together. So that's one way that's just one way that the gut plays a role. Number two, if it's inflamed, if your microbiome, and we're not going to go deep into this today, but if your microbiome's off, if you've got an infection, I find fungal, parasite, mostly single cell parasites, bacterial infections there in the gut, then there's inflammation. Well, you're not absorbing your nutrients right? So even if you're eating a healthy diet, you might not be absorbing all the B vitamins from your leafy greens, right? You may not be getting the protein, amino acids absorbing that you need to help support cellular reproduction and the immune system, things like that. So that's another way that the gut influences this immunity question. And yet a third is, just to touch on this, because this is really interesting, and we haven't, even talked a little bit about this before, but you think of your thermostat in your house, right? You go to that thermostat, and that kind of sets the rules, right, for what the climate's going to be like within the house. Well, your gut is that exact same thing for your immune function internally. And here's how that works, just in short. We've got our large intestine, okay? And everybody's heard of the appendix. A lot of people think that, oh, you can just take it out of there, right? You hear a lot of people get that appendix removed when it becomes inflamed. And the fact is unfortunately, when things go wrong, terribly wrong, it can be a emergency situation when you don't want that to rupture, okay, and create sepsis or infection internally. But the point is that appendix is really very important, and it's important for setting the thermostat of your immune function in your body. Because what happens is the appendix sits at the base of your what's called the ascending colon, or the part of your large intestine that moves your food and waste up against gravity, right? Yep. So the point is that as it's moving, all of these and that large intestine contains the lion's share of your microbiome. So what's happening is, as your gut, as the muscle in your large intestine, the ascending part is squeezing that stuff up against gravity, a little bit of it falls back into the appendix. Right. Your appendix takes note of what's there, and it sets your immune system tone based on what organisms are it's coming into contact with, right? So there's just a few kind of concepts about how that gut's a big player, and honestly, that's a whole weekend seminar, right, of the gut, itself, what we could get into. But those are some kind of top level concepts about why it's so important.
And then how many people then are walking around, and I don't know if I'm putting you on the spot, I don't know if you know exact percentage, but just a guesstimate, how many people are walking around unaware of this gut, healthy gut, leaky gut, the valve issue, or some kind of a constipation, things like that?
Oh man, that's a great question. It's let's just say it's way over 50%, right? I mean, I'm just going to kind of roughly ballpark it. I mean, we're way over 50%. We're over 70%, definitely. Okay. So it's most people. And you got to think of it this way, honestly, because when 90%, this is a New England Journal of Medicine, and it's a medical journal statistic, right? Peer-reviewed medical journal statistic. Depending on what article you're reading, anywhere from 75 to 90% of the entire diagnostic catalog, all of the diagnoses that are out there, are related to inflammation, right? And so we've got a situation where when you ask how many people are, is this sort of thing going on with, well, the vast majority of all of the diagnoses that people deal with, right, big and small, right, are related to this chronic inflammation. And that inflammation is your body protecting itself. Okay. It's your immune system that's involved in that inflammation. So, it's your body's only protecting itself because it's got some sort of an invading influence going on, right? And so it's going into that kind of protection, that protection mode, and that's a fight or flight. And so now we're right back into this kind of hormone immune system, right? Like protectionary kind of mindset. So the more we can do, right? The more we can do to be aggressive or on the offense about controlling our environment and doing the things that we can do to limit that inflammation or limit the influences that are creating that immune system hyperactivity and disruption, then the better off we're going to be in the long run. It's literally what I tell people I work with and my team works with is that we can empower you, right? We can empower you to take yourself out of the risk factor categories, right? We know that, whatever the statistic is, some number out of some number males, are going to have diabetes or heart disease or something like that, right? The more you actually take a stance on these things, right, and start dealing with your environment, which not only includes diet, not only includes, some supplementation, but stress levels, mindset, right? Physical health, exercise, those sorts of things. The more you do, you literally take yourself out of those risk categories and you start shifting that.
I'm gonna question here. So as we age, most things wear down, hence the value of fasting. But that's a whole other story. But as we age, so the older community listening to this, anyone 40 plus, what are some things they can do? Because by 40 plus, we've been eating the way we've been eating, enculturated to eat the way we've been eating, not based on a need to eat, but just we eat by the clock and we've been taught how to eat basically. At 40 plus years old, what are some things that you think, that's the groups that are most at risk, quote unquote, as you get older? What are some of the things they should be thinking about when it comes to immunity as you get older?
Yeah. So one thing I don't accept, and one frame of mind I try to help people get out of, is that as we age, we naturally become unhealthier, or we naturally we have to deal with these risk factors. It's simply not true, right? Now, what is true is what you said. By the time, we are, just to pick an age, say age 40, we've had so many years of maybe not knowing, and so eating the standard diet and things like this, that we've caused some problems, right? And so you can find yourself there. But the concept really is that what happens, and this is the big one that I hear, Alvin. It's like, oh, once you hit age 40, the exercise doesn't work as well, right? It's like your body hits a wall, right? And it's not true. What is true is that we haven't done anything maybe by age 40, right? To really address some of these things. And so what happens is, the longer somebody was on the standard American diet, okay, or the standard diet, right? Because we may not be just talking with Americans here. Yeah, exactly. But by the time you've done that long enough, your microbiome's screwed up, right? Yep. So your digestion is generally screwed up. Quite possibly your nutrient absorption is screwed up. It's not working right. And the other thing that's major here, again, that we're just going to just barely touch on, it's a whole nother weekend, of worth of talking here, of deep dive, is your detoxification. Because phase 1 and phase 2 of detoxification happens in the liver, but phase 3, the last stage of detoxification, happens in the large intestine, in the gut, right? So once you get to that point where the microbiome's screwed up, not only do you have all those things that we've mentioned so far, but now you might not be detoxing right? And so the body just becomes overloaded. So to go on the offensive, right? What you think of is, okay, number one, I'm going to stop putting the things in my body, at least as frequently, that wreck that microbiome, right? It's you're going with more whole foods rather than processed foods or fried foods or this sort of thing, right? You minimize or eliminate that. You go with organic foods, because the herbicides, pesticides, they don't, it's not a situation where, see, we hear this with glyphosate and Roundup and some of the major herbicides that are out there. Our body detoxifies those pretty well. It has a short half-life in our body, so it's not that it's so toxic to us per se. What does happen, though, is that blocks the metabolism of our microbiome bacteria, right? So the whole organic versus non-organic food, where it's very real, is that it will wreck your microbiome. Okay, so you go towards more organic. you become very aware of strategies for dealing with stressors in your life, right? The number one driver of leaky gut and hormonal imbalance, and therefore immune problems and inflammation, is chronic stress. It's hell on the adrenal glands and that whole thing. And you get good sleep, right?
Yeah.
Sleep helps to promote that hormonal circadian rhythm and really the induction of what's called the hormonal constellation as it supports our immune system function. Basically broken down, what that means is there's all kinds of little hormone conversions chemically going on in our body back and forth all the time, right? And getting proper sleep and stress management and those sorts of things are just integral to supporting that properly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's, again, just to summarize with everybody, the body has this magic of healing itself. I'm always, in my studies of all the therapies the modalities I've studied, that's been my basis of thought process. And I keep that in mind. When anyone asks me, do I treat a certain condition or work with a label, diabetes or whatever it is, I don't worry about the label. I think about what's around it, the symptoms of it, and what the causes of it could be, but that's not my focus. My focus is on how can I get that physiology and that body to heal itself, because it has that magic. So what Dr. Matt, to summarize this piece, and we don't want to go too deep into it yet, but to summarize this piece, what he's saying is we need to consider the way we've been eating. If we've been taught by generations of issues in our society and mindless eating processed, boxed, canned, we can't expect our body to deal with the chemicals in those things and the processing of it and all what's been done to get it to the shelf. So what we need to do is need to go back to factory settings, go back to the natural as best you can. I know there's issues with money and cost and accessibility. However, do your best to get back. Simple things. Dr. Matt talked about sleeping, simple things. If you're not into meditation, just some time to be quiet, reduce your stress load, because you're getting in the way of the body doing its job. So I want to wrap it up a little bit here, because I know we could go on. I don't want this to be a master class. I wanted to touch on it. So hopefully we have motivated you to start thinking about dietary changes, lifestyle changes.
And like you said, simple things, right? And
Really
I think, yeah, absolutely. And just to throw, because earlier you mentioned fasting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we've got some of that intermittent fasting that's really become popularized, and that's good stuff. I know you do. I work with clients on, there's many types of intermittent fasting, what's right for that person for what they're going for. But
Right.
I'll even work with people on water fasting, right?
Yeah.
Because if you want a way to, and so I just wanted to put this in here, because as you talk about simple things, to reset that metabolism, like you said, reset factory settings, fasting helps you do that. The more that we've been on this kind of carbohydrate, right, or processed food driven metabolism and dietary structure, the farther we get away from an efficient movement of our metabolism from carbohydrate into fat metabolism, right?
Yep.
And you want to know one of the best ways to reverse that or reset the factory settings, retrain your cells to be able to switch back to being able to process fat metabolically for energy and help us reestablish our metabolic function. Fasting, bam, it's one of them, right? And you can go, even water fasting will really be a major reset. I think is where I wanted to just kind of punch in on that.
And we're going to get into, as I said, everyone listening, I know we're touching on some areas and you're going, what is this? What is that? We're going to talk about all of that. We're going to get into it. But the best way is so that you just savor some of the top level things and then dive in. Because we know we're not speaking 100% to someone who's already versed. If they're versed in it, they're already probably doing it. So we want to talk to you out there who are wondering how to do this. And so we're going to dive in a little later, but let's switch up now and go to some practical information here. A few minutes on what are, you mentioned in our pre-talk here, 3 supplements that someone can grab right away. And then you also have yourself developed a viral package that you can, to really boost it for those who are interested.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
let's
So
go 101.
right, absolutely. So we've talked about a lot of lifestyle things and why it's important with hormones, stress, whatnot, to help boost that immune system or your immunity during these times. Some very top level sort of supplemental proven methods out there, right, are your vitamin D, your vitamin C, and zinc, right? That is very, very top level, very, very basic. Even if you get sick, it's going to limit the amount of time you get sick, that sort of a thing. But there's some very intelligent ways that when we understand the process of viral infection, there's some really ways that you can supercharge and make your immunity incredibly great, to where you can really, really just blow this thing up, right? Again, I call it's like supercharge the immune system, because what we've got is I've got a 4-point strategy, right, for antiviral a method, right? Yeah. So there are ways, right?
Dr. Matt, before you go there, what are some of the dosages of the zinc, the C, and D? What are some dosages that someone can take right away?
Sure. So let's start with vitamin D, right? Yeah. The average adult uses 4,000 IU, or international units, right? That's how the vitamin D comes measured per day, right? Yeah. So if you're going to build up, then you got to take over 4,000. And that's confusing for a lot of people who are taking vitamin D, because they might be taking 1 or 2 pills of vitamin D. And what they don't tell you is how much you're supposed to take. And those pills might only be 1,000, right? Or 2,000 units. So you're taking 1 or 2 a day, and you're really, maybe not boosting that heavy. Personally, for somebody who knows they need to up their vitamin D levels in their body, I'll have them take 10,000 a day, right? For a period of time, right? And you can easily get, a blood test to check this out if you need to. But I would go personally for most people that, especially coming out of wintertime, right? The sun is not providing as much as the vitamin D internally. I would go somewhere 6 to 10,000, right, to build your vitamin D levels in the body. All right.
Okay. And then later on, we'll talk about, I'm going to jump in real quick, because someone listening is going to hear that. When I first started nutrition 20 years ago, it's a classic, hey, it's fat soluble, it can cause issues in the nervous system if it accumulates. Really quick, I don't want to go too deep here, but what if someone's thinking, geez, I heard that vitamin D is fat soluble, it can accumulate in the tissues, and I'm going to be in trouble. What about, because it's 1,000 is even a lot that we used to hear about. Now you're saying 10.
Right. I'll tell you, I've not tested anyone when I've actually done a blood test, right? I've not tested anyone that had adequate levels of vitamin D, right? We're so devoid of it that, honestly, most people can start out with the assumption that they have some level of deficiency into what's optimal in their body, right? So, you can start out there, and if you're really concerned, the testing methods that we have available to us, you literally can get a vitamin D test done for generally around $30, right? So if it's a real concern to you and you want to have that information, then great, that can be done. But that's an idea of where most people are starting out. They're starting out real low.
Okay, and then C.
Yeah, so C is a little bit of a different story, because your gut can only absorb so much vitamin C, right? When you take mega doses of vitamin C through a powder or through a capsule or something like that, Any vitamin C that your gut can't absorb, this is going to go right through you. I actually use high dose vitamin C mega flushes sometimes to flush out people that are stopped up, right? Right, and they've got some constipation or whatnot. So with vitamin C, you have to then, so your gut absorption is going to play into how much of any supplement you take, number one. All right. Number two, it's best to break up your vitamin C dosages so that your gut has time to absorb a bit. And then you take some more a few hours later and it can absorb some more. And a few hours later, it can absorb some more. That's the way you're really going to absorb the most out of it instead of, taking a lot at one point in time. That's not going to work very well. So you're going to want to take, smaller, consistent dosages, probably in, I'd say, the 400 to 500 range,
Milligrams,
right? Milligrams. Yeah, you get up into the, say, 1,000 and above in a single dose, and you're really not going to absorb much of it.
Right.
Right. So.
And then zinc, final.
Yeah, zinc. Zinc is, zinc is one of those minerals in the body, like magnesium, that's used so many places in the biochemistry of your body to stimulate enzymes that drive the biochemistry that you really, you can't hardly take too much necessarily, right? I mean, most people are just not going to be in danger of doing that. What I generally suggest for the kind of the topic we're talking about, which is boosting the immunity, and it's super important for the viral conversation, is you go and you get some of those zinc lozenges, right? And because that helps to disperse the zinc in a kind of measured way, so you're absorbing it over again the time that it takes for that lozenge to dissolve in the body and that sort of thing. And you generally do, I would say a couple of those lozenges, maybe 3 a day during the time where you're really concerned about your immunity and that sort of a thing. At other points in time, the amounts that are in a multivitamin, the amounts that are, so just those regular kind of smaller amounts, those really are enough for a person. But for immunity's sake, I really like the delivery in these zinc lozenges, the dosing that they put in there, and how that kind of just over time lets you absorb it a little bit like the vitamin C idea, where it's just consistently kind of coming out and you're absorbing it.
I love it. Love it. All right. So I hope that was useful for everybody. Now let's jack it up. Let's take it up to the next level.
Yeah. So the next level is really where we can get intelligent about how to break the cycles and boost, supercharge our immunity in a very intelligent, intentional way when it comes to viruses. So viruses, they have to recognize our cells, number one. And you might read some articles right now about coronavirus and the spike protein. That's literally how the virus is able to infect our cells. And so there's this docking that happens with viral cells to our body. And one of the strategies is that we can literally block that ability for these cells to these viruses, I should say, my fault, viruses to dock to our cells and to infect them, right? We can target the virus by killing it itself. We can block the replication of the viruses. That's a second strategy. So we got targeting the virus to kill it specifically. We've got blocking the replication of the virus, because once that virus is docked and it injects its RNA into the cell, that RNA incorporates itself into our DNA and it starts to replicate it, right? And it produces, many new viruses, and ultimately our cell ruptures, and now we've got all these new viruses, right, that have been replicated, right? That's how that had happened. So we can target the virus to kill it specifically. There's even herbals that we know specifically with the SARS coronavirus family that target that family, right? So we can get very specific on this. We can block the replication. That's a second way we can kill that. We can build our white blood cell, our lymphocytes that fight these viruses, and then we can help our cells repair and recuperate from an infection. So those are the 4 general strategies that we can incorporate to supercharge our immunity. Now, with this COVID-19 thing in particular, we hear a lot about this cytokine storm and kind of this immune system that goes out of control. And there's then further in this, if for somebody with this type of a concern, there's further things that you can do that within the COX-2 inhibitors, that natural substances that help to calm that inflammatory cascade and that inflammatory cycle that are part of that immune system going out of control, right? So we can block the NF-kappa B protein, which is a protein that's found in all of our cells, just floating around in there. It's in there, but that protein regulates our DNA replication and kind of the response the DNA gives. So when we say that the virus injects its RNA, it incorporates the RNA into our DNA and it replicates. Well, blocking this NF-kappa B pathway is a strategy to help block that. And really, something like this NF-kappa B concept is really smart for people anyway. If you take on a strategy to do this, not only are you, say, boosting your immunity when it comes to the virus in and of itself like that, but the NF-kappa B pathway is present in cancer, in heart failure, and atherosclerosis, right? Diabetes types 1 and 2, right? All kinds of autoimmune and inflammatory conditions. So it's a strategy that not only you can boost your immunity, but it's just healthy in general, right? So,
yeah. So here's, I wanna make this clear to our guests listening and anyone listening. We are not saying we have a cure for COVID by what Dr. Matt's saying. Here's what we're saying. Go back to what I said earlier. If you get out of the way, give the body what it needs, you label it whatever you want to call it, cancer, COVID, you name it, whatever you want. And what we're talking about here is, my mentor has a saying. He says, you want to put the odds in your favor. And when we're talking about doing the strategies, we're not out here because we don't want anybody calling us or saying we have the cure for cancer or the cure for COVID. We're not saying that. What we're talking about is empowering your body to do what it knows how to do really, really well, and putting the odds in your favor. So let's get that straight. And so, Dr. Matt, this formula, you've made it easy and accessible. How can someone get to these formulas? And we'll dive in on, there's a lot there Dr. Matt touched on that we're going to dive in later, like inflammation and so on and so forth. So, but for now, how can they get to this? I know you've made it easy. What are some ways they can get to it?
Yeah, we're going to make it real easy for anybody who does want to engage in any of these 4 kind of strategies for supercharging that immune system. We're just going to provide links right in the description below for this video, right? Absolutely. And we'll even, for those people that want to do that, and they're subscribing to the channel here, and they're kind of following what we're talking about, we'll even provide a coupon code for them to access those packs, right? We're gonna put together some just little immunity boosting packs, right? For each of those kind of 4 categories that we covered. We'll have a pack that's available if somebody does want to guard against that cytokine storm, or what they're calling with the COVID, the hyperactive immune response, right? We've got one together for that. And then there's even, like, say, some herbal teas, right? That'll help to boost your immunity for this thing. There's a little pack there, or a respiratory type of support sort of pack. So we'll have that nice and tied up with a nice little bow for you too.
Awesome. Thank you. And the information that Dr. Matt's talking about will be in the show notes. And It'll be available. Just click on the link and you'll see it there, and you'll go right to the site and get into that. And if you want to go deeper in it, myself, Dr. Matt, we're here. We're online. We are virtual anywhere in the world. We can get you going and get you started. So, all right, Dr. Matt, lots to dive in on in the future, as everybody can hear. He's just scratching the surface, and we want to empower you. So thank you again for being on the show this week. We'll be back in a couple of weeks again for more strategy sessions. And so remember why we do this. Remember, we put the time in to share this with you. We want you to be empowered. Dr. Matt with the functional health team. He's a cause-based medicine doctor, so he goes for the causes. And myself, I'm really passionate about helping you to be relentless in your pursuit for what brings you joy. And you can only do that with a mind, body, and soul approach and staying elevated. So until next time, re-listen to this again, take some notes, and be proactive about, don't wait for the vaccine only. The body has this amazing part to heal itself. Do your part. All right, until next time, peace and love. Talk to you soon. All right, brother. We are